Alex, thanks for coming up. I do want to get to the book. It's terrific. I don't want to give it away for people who have not read it, but what inspired you to do this?
So in thinking about, I hadn't planned to do a book on the subject of that major league team. The first thing that kind of caught my attention was actually a team that Michael Chavis was on. Back in 2015, after the Red Sox had signed Yoan Moncada, it made him the most expensive prospect in baseball history. He was joining a really special group in Greenville, single A, so they have a ways to go. But he was going to an infield that included Michael, who was a first-round pick the previous year, and Mauricio Dubon, who was coming from out of nowhere to become a really interesting prospect, and Rafael Devers, who was an 18-year-old prodigy, and other guys such as Nick Longy and Jalen Beeks, and Michael Kopech was on that team. Anderson Espinoza joined it, Andrew Benintendi. So I thought, this is a talented group. It's insane that one team has that many players who have a chance to be really good big leaguers. And I bet that if you spent the next 5 years, 7 years following their lives, you could learn an awful lot about what player development looks like, what life in the minor leagues looks like, what an organization looks like. And it turned out that they beat my timetable by a little bit, because by the time 2018 rolled around, not only were there some of Michael's teammates in the big leagues on a team that was about to win a championship and set records in terms of Red Sox wins totals, but they were going to be joining another homegrown group that had preceded it by a couple of years that had already been through Portland. Some of you guys will remember the 2014 Sea Dogs that on opening day featured Mookie Betts going 4 for 4, opening day home run, Henry Owens throwing a no-hitter on opening day, Blake Swihart, Xander Bogaerts and Jackie Bradley had been through Portland the previous year. There were these two different waves that were so interesting to look at their entire experience and their entire trajectories in professional baseball that, that was what struck me. They had gone through so much. They had grown so much from teenagers to these players who had become exceptional players on the field in the biggest games imaginable. And then there were people like Joe Oliver, who had spent time trying to help them, and sometimes probably beating himself on the head trying to do so. There were challenges that were associated with people who cared about these players, not just for what they could do on the field, but about who they were becoming. And so that's kind of the idea behind the book, looking at the Red Sox over the course of what I view as a really interesting 8-year period.
Yeah, and as you know, with having prospects and there's a list of players that you potentially will go up and they're talked about, but this wave of guys, it's not normal to have what happens for all of them to go up.
An extraordinary number of them reached their ceilings, which doesn't happen. Again, the idea of having prospects is that people say prospects will break your heart, and often that's true. It's really, baseball is a very, very difficult game. There's a reason why there are a number of levels that intercede between a player getting drafted and reaching the major leagues, and each one of those is successively more challenging, more daunting, and funnels out more and more of those standout young talents. I mean, Michael will remember Anderson Espinoza, who was a mind-boggling talent that was coming through the Red Sox system with that wave in 2015. And the Red Sox traded him for Drew Pomeranz in 2016, and he blew out when he got to the Padres. He subsequently blew out again, and it would be just great to see him on a mound again, but it's been years since that's happened. It's really hard to go from the time being a standout amateur who dominates in high school or college to becoming someone who can excel or even reach the big leagues.
Joined the Globe in 2015, Red Sox beat writer, and it's also good to see you on NESN. I know you get to do some stuff during the games.
Yeah, well, Eck is, Joe Oliver and I share contact with Eck, and I don't know if I don't know how I'd be tripping at you, but, getting a nickname from Dennis Eckersley, having him call me Stat Masterson is probably the greatest accomplishment of my career.
Eck needs to go into some kind of business with all his verbiage. It's outstanding.
One of a kind. I can't believe that he hasn't, other people keep producing these Ectionaries, and why hasn't he marketed this thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a jersey that says Stat Masterson now? No?
I have a well, when I was honored, when I had the great privilege of being able to throw out a first pitch with the Sea Dogs, I wore my Stat Masterson hat, which was a present to me upon the publication of the book.
Great. Yeah. Alex is heavily involved in what's going on in the minor leagues. I mean, being on the Red Sox beat. I mean, a lot of you guys now have a pulse here. I think Theo really brought excitement. I started here in 2005 when we had Papelbon, Lester, and Pedroia, and it really boomed, and it wasn't covered as much. And now it's a big deal, the minor leagues.
Yeah, well, I started covering the Red Sox farm system for Baseball America back in 2008, and so my interest became increasingly focused on it. But you're right, Theo Epstein, when he came over and talked about building the scouting and player development machine, that was a different way of thinking about how to build Red Sox teams, at least at that time. The Red Sox had come through a 10-year period where it was largely building through veteran free agent signings and not heavily through internal options. And that changed. And it was important to take stock of how that was changing, because in order to understand how the roster was being built year after year, and at that time, by coming off of that 2005 Sea Dogs team, unbelievable. John Lester, Jonathan Papelbon, Manny Del Carmen, Anibal Sanchez in the opening day rotation, right? That's crazy in a AA affiliate. The Red Sox were really building around that group, so it became important to understand what that meant, what the commitment to the scouting and player development machine meant. And then it was undercovered at the time, and so I was trying to find my own way as a reporter. I was working another full-time job and trying to make $20 here and there writing articles. So there was an opportunity, because people were overlooking this extraordinary wave of talent that was forming in the Red Sox system, and over time they paid more attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, but people know of all the players now. I'll have questions of guys that were in Greenville. When are we going to see this guy? Tristan Cassis has already come up now. Before 2005, that would never have happened.
Yeah, well, the opportunity to follow what's happening on a day-to-day basis in the minor leagues is radically different than it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And, we were able to see video of this giant 19-year-old Tristan Cassis, who, looks like, I don't know, like a giraffe or something in the batter's box, launching 450-foot rockets. And so all of a sudden it captures your imagination, and it does create an accessibility. Michael Chavis with an opening day walk-off in Greenville back in 2015. Things like that. You can pick up on them. You can connect with them, connect with players at a very early point in their career, so that you can, it's not just imagining a rumored name. There's something there.
I think what's great about baseball, everyone involved, yourself on the beat. I mean, you're at the ballpark. It's just like being a player, coach, front office. What's your schedule like? I mean, I know it's pretty intense for those that don't know.
I'm sure it's not. Mike Regan knows that my life is nothing like that of a front office guy, for better and worse. But the commitment is total to the profession. I have a great family, and I try to make sure that during the season I am spending as much time invested in their days and well-beings as I can before 8:30 in the morning, and then after that I'm probably not going to see them again until the next morning at 6:30, because I'll be at the ballpark until midnight, working on stories, trying to come up with ideas, trying to pay attention to games, and seeing something interesting, trying to appreciate the fact that on any given day at a ballpark you have an opportunity to see something you've never seen before, and to experience something pretty exciting.
Isn't that the best thing about baseball? That you can literally, it doesn't matter how many years you've been doing it?
The thrill of the unexpected, absolutely. It keeps refreshing itself, renewing itself in all kinds of forms, some of them more enjoyable than others, but it is worthwhile because it is unexpected.
Tell us how you got your start.
I was at a failing internet company, needed to take stock of what my next move was, and thought that I should actually start thinking about something I wanted to do rather than just something that was available. So I started writing just on my own without not for any money or anything, writing some articles for any place on the internet that would publish them, while also working a full-time job at a university in order to have health care and an income, and over the course, it took 6 years of doing that before I got a full-time job with WEI.com back in 2008. But it was a really valuable life experience.
And you became Stat Masterson. I mean, that's part of this.
From humble beginnings.
Yeah. And I know you've worked for some really good publications as well, in addition to EI and the Globe, right?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to be published in places that I couldn't have imagined being published in back in 2002 when I first started doing this. Whether it was getting stuff published on ESPN.com or with Baseball America, which again has been such an important part of my career. But yeah, I feel very fortunate to have had anyone care about what I've been writing, and to be able to do it for this long means a lot.
Can you tell us like a favorite interview, or are they all fun? Or do you have one that really stands out?
There are some that stand out for different reasons. I mean, anyone who remembers Ryan Westmoreland,
Yes.
And what a special talent he was, what a special person he is, the opportunity to talk to him about some of the life challenges that he had gone through in the wake of multiple brain surgeries meant, his willingness to share his story meant a lot. The same was true of Anthony Rizzo back when he was, when he was just returning from cancer after the 2008 season, and meeting this super impressive 18-year-old kid who was talking about, really challenging life experiences. I mean, it inspires you. It's part of the reason why we're at this event tonight, because those people who are willing to share their stories about the extraordinary challenges they've gone through in life, can reshape the way that you see the world.
Well said, yeah. How about when you have to cover another sport? I'll see you at a Patriots game, and I'm always wondering, because it's so different. I know the environment in a locker room after an NFL loss is completely different than baseball.
Yeah, it's great because I don't have to pretend I have any idea what I'm doing. Whereas most of the time, I don't have any idea what I'm doing in a baseball clubhouse, but I have to at least fake it. So there's pressure there. Whereas throw me in a different sport, and I can be admittedly clueless, and no one's complaining.
Those are very common words in baseball. We say that a lot. Nobody has any idea what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Still at it.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, it was great having you at Hadlock this year. You came up and you threw a good first pitch.
It made it without bouncing to the intended target, so I view that as a success. Neither my 9-year-old nor my 5-year-old were humiliated. They did not disown me. They got to meet Slugger. Good night all around.
There's no pressure anymore,
Yeah. Whew.
Well, thank you for coming up, and continue just doing great stuff. I really enjoy your work, and you've also become a good friend too, which I really appreciate that.
Well, I truly appreciate your friendship. Your history with the Sea Dogs is extraordinary, and I truly love coming up to Portland. This is one of my family's favorite areas to spend any time in. The community that surrounds the Sea Dogs is really amazing, and so it means a lot to us anytime we have a chance to connect with you guys.
And buy the book too, right? Yeah.
Please do. Read it, read it, criticize me, and, but hopefully enjoy it. And, those who pay attention to the Sea Dogs do so because they appreciate the story of how players become what they eventually become. And so hopefully the book resonates in some way.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.